When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, welcome to The Mission. I'm your host, Jameer Howerton. And as always, we have a cool show for you as we wrap up our conversations with sports professionals that have been sharing their rich stories of commitment, integrity, and character. Today's guest is the executive director for the Jason Taylor Foundation. He is also the co-host of the Fish Tank podcast alongside Miami Dolphins great OJ McDuffie, and he is a proud graduate from the University of Florida. Please welcome former Miami Dolphins media relations executive, Mr. Seth Levit, to The Mission. Well, Seth, welcome to The Mission. We're so grateful to have you on here. How is everything going, my friend?
Everything's fantastic. What a better way to start the day than to be here with you. My appreciation for all that the Pro Football Hall of Fame is through the roof and has only grown over the years. And to be asked to join you today is fantastic. There was no way I was saying no. I'm surprised I didn't beg you to be on the show, but things are great. I'm excited about this.
Awesome, Seth. So during the month of May, as we talked on the phone, what we were doing, it was taking a step back and really connecting with sports professionals that not only had ties to the men that are enshrined here in Canton, Ohio, but to talk about their rich stories of character, respect, integrity, the Hall of Fame values. And
Sure.
and how you exemplify that not only in the boardroom, but just in your life, in your career, and how you are doing some phenomenal work with the Jason Taylor Foundation. So before we dive into all of the rich history, because in my intro, I talked about how you're a graduate of the University of Florida, you're the executive director of the Jason Taylor Foundation, and not only that, you're the co-host of the Fish Tank alongside
Yes, sir.
Miami Dolphins legendary great OJ McDuffie, and we're going to unpack all of that. But I just want people to get to know who Seth Levit is and all the phenomenal work that you have been blessed to do within the media relations world that has transitioned you into your career today.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, I'm excited to tell the story. I'm a little shocked, but appreciative that anybody cares, right? Usually as a PR guy, you learn to be behind the scenes, and it's a very comfortable place to be. And as you said, we'll get into the podcasting space, which has opened up this whole other world to be on this side of the microphone or the camera or whatever it might be. But it has been a very fulfilling career. I don't want to talk as if it's over. I still have kids to feed and bills to pay, and hopefully a lot of goals to accomplish. But it has been a fulfilling one. And what I thought was going to be just to pursue a lifelong dream to work with my childhood team of the Miami Dolphins did have this amazing twist and turn, and to now partner with one of the icons of not just this franchise, but in league history, somebody who's going to spend the next 40,000 years in your backyard there in Canton, and to be able to do the work that we do has just been unbelievable. It's been transformational in my own life and hopefully in the lives of others.
Seth, I see a lot of our careers because as a kid growing up, I was blessed to work for my childhood team, the New York Jets, right out of college. I spent 6 years with them. Then I had an opportunity to go back for one more year when Todd Bowles was the head coach, total of 7 years.
Good man.
I just remember the lessons that I've learned of working in that equipment room. I graduated with a business degree, but however, the equipment room was totally different, but I did use FIFO, LIFO. We were the first ones in, the last ones out. We all worked together with the PR team, the trainers, the video squad. We were the support staff that really was grinding with those guys. And we got a chance to really see them from a different perspective that no one else did, the regular fan. And we were pretty much no family life with the NFL, pretty much stood for. So with that being said, when you talk about the lessons that you've learned of being blessed to work for the Miami Dolphins in the media relations world, what were those lessons that you learned and how did that shape you?
Wow, there's so many. And before I get into that, let me just say this, much respect to the equipment guys. I mean, there's nobody who works harder, grinds harder, thankless job the equipment guy, everybody watches their favorite team, wears those colors, loves how crisp and clean the guys look and those cleats and this, that, and the third. And the equipment guys are doing it behind the scenes. They're not looking for any attention. In fact, they don't want the attention because usually that means something went wrong. But the equipment guys, when we were down here with Tony Eglis and Joe Chimino and actually Charlie Thiel, who was my roommate, like we, not just on the road, Charlie and I lived together for 6 or 7 years. So I never saw him because unless I was at work, because I know the grind that those guys go through, and just a tremendous respect for anybody who's worked in an NFL equipment room, for sure. But from, to get to your question, you learn so much. I mean, just the values of being a working professional, of accountability, of deadlines, of communication skills, of writing skills, of being able to look at a situation and try and maybe the worst situation that could be presented to you and trying to find the best out of that situation, and not to spin. You hear that a lot, right? Sometimes if you watch a movie, especially about Hollywood, the PR people are always these kind of obnoxious, horrible people that you don't want to deal with. No, I don't want to necessarily be associated with that. But again, to look at a group of individuals that are trying to accomplish a goal and say, look, I'm not going to score any touchdowns. I'm not going to make any tackles. But how can I look at what these guys are trying to accomplish and help them tell their story, help them minimize distractions, help the community that loves and lives and dies on everything that these individuals do? How do I get the right stories out to those individuals? I mean, you learn so much. And when I left the National Football, well, I never truly left, right? But when I left working for the Miami Dolphins, specifically in that media relations department, I'd like to think, I hope that I took all of those things with me in my current job with the Jason Taylor Foundation and anything that we've done through our podcasting, or any of the guys that continue to call me to this day and might ask my advice. I just helped somebody write a speech the other day. So all of those things are really meaningful. I think they have a place in the world beyond just the walls of an NFL training facility or a stadium. And I think it's made me who I am.
Who were some of your mentors that mentored you along the way that you still keep in touch with today?
Yeah. So professionally, you're talking professionally.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's what I was thinking about this. This is what's wild is that, again, you guys in Canton, Ohio, my partner on the fish tank from Cleveland, he loves to talk about Ohio and Cleveland, and I kind of give him a hard time. But the truth of the matter is I am so intertwined with the great people of Ohio. My mother was born in Ohio. She lived in Shaker Heights, Ohio. I worked for the Cleveland Cavaliers as an intern before I got the job with the Dolphins. My boss, and he is my boss with the Dolphins, Harvey Green, who was a mentor for sure. And we're going to talk about Harvey. He worked for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, it's just amazing. But my first professional mentor, and as a guy to this day, I just love him to death. And I think that not only did he teach me so much, but he really did. I sat there and listened to the recommendation he gave me to Harvey that enabled me to live my dream and work for the Dolphins. There's a guy by the name of Bob Zink. And Bob was a PR man for the Cleveland Cavs, and, quite a character, but nobody worked harder. Nobody had more, you talk about standards and morals and ethics and the grind and doing the job the right way, even if nobody's looking, and, staying till hours after the game in the wee hours of the morning, not just to be there, but because that's what it required. The details mattered, simple things. Always have a pen on you. Make sure you write things down. Don't trust your brain. Inevitably, there's going to be too many things for you to keep in mind. And, a good PR guy always has a pen. You write, he had all these notes and he was so organized. And Bob Zink was truly, truly a mentor that I think it's crazy. That was 1995 that I worked under Bob, and all these years later, and we still stay in touch, and he's still in Ohio. And the things that I learned from him are things that I carry on. And then I did, come back home to South Florida, because I did grow up in South Florida, and I worked for Harvey for 8 years. And Harvey, you want to talk about characters?
He's the man.
Just say the name Harvey Green to anybody who knows him, and he is the legend. Character of characters, but he is a legend. He is absolutely a legend. He, in so many ways, kind of reinvented the way PR guys handled their business in pro sports, first in basketball, then in the NFL. And again, I think about when you hear players talk about tough coaches and how it wasn't always easy playing for those individuals, but they, when they retired and they think back and the things that they even try and instill in their own children or their own employees, it came from those tough coaches, and Harvey was that tough coach for me, and I just learned so much from him. So he was absolutely a mentor. And then when I left the Dolphins and have been working with Jason for 18 years now, which is pretty crazy to think about. 18 years it's been since we started this thing in 2004. But another guy from Ohio, from Warren, Ohio, a guy by the name of Ralph Stringer. He's Dan Marino's longtime marketing manager, but he's a board member of our organization. And he took me under his wing and he said, here's how we started Danny's Foundation. Here's some recommendations for you. And I call Ralph. We talk at least once a week, daily. I'm actually working on something about his own story. But those are three people that I can say to this day really helped me become the professional that I am. They may not want, they may say, hey, Seth, don't be telling people that. We don't want to be associated with what you're putting out there. Hopefully I'm making them proud, but really special individuals.
When you look back at your time at the University of Florida and the preparation that it prepared you for this, for where you are today, how much did it?
Boy, it prepared me. It absolutely did. I think that those internships and, you think you know something when you get out of college, but
Right.
You don't really know till your feet hit the ground and the real bullets start flying. And, but I went to Florida just excited to get away from home. Not that there was anything bad, but just to kind of have my own independence, but not be too far away, still have my warm weather and sunshine. But I also knew I wanted to work in sports. And so I wanted to go to a university that treated sports like it was a business. And the University of Florida and the dollars they raised from their Bull Gators and the way that their athletic association was handled, that was like being around a professional sports franchise. And I was fortunate enough that in my freshman year, just kind of having no idea how I was going to get to where I wanted to be, the guy living right next to me in the dorm, Terry Kors, he was volunteering for the baseball team, and he would work in the scoreboard and he would keep some stats, and he introduced me to the sports information directors there. And I met Steve McLean and I met Joel Glass, and they gave me an opportunity as someone who really wasn't ready to be a professional.
Right.
But I learned and I saw, and someone taught me how to tie a tie, and I would show up to games and I saw what happened, and I saw the way the media handled things and what a press box looked like and what press row looked like at basketball games. And so I think it did give me that initial taste of, yes, I do want to chase this as a dream. I do want to pursue this, and I think I can do it, but I have to watch what others around me are doing.
Commitment, Seth. You were
No question.
You were committed to the process, man. I love that. It just, see, you talk to a lot of athletes all the time and Hall of Famers, but I'm not in any shape or form or fashion saying that we're Hall of Famers. I'm not saying that.
In our own right. Hey,
but
yes,
in our
we
own
are.
right, when you're working in this industry, you are held to a level of integrity, character, respect, and you have to give that. So I think for our listeners to hear about the people who are behind the scenes, because at the end of the day, it's trust.
Yep.
You're with the first ballot Hall of Famer who trust you and your work ethic. And it's just amazing to hear that. You were part of the Miami Dolphins media relations team that won the Pete Rozelle Award. For people that may not know that, tell us about that, because this is like the Emmys, the Academy Awards.
It really, it's the PR Oscar for sure.
Okay, come on.
And I rode Harvey Green's coattails, right? I did my part. But again, that shows you the respect. Harvey won 2 of those, and I think he won the equivalent in the NBA as well. But that was, I believe, 1997. This guy's rookie year, JT's rookie year, and I was just a young guy on the staff, and I did what was asked of me, and I tried to make my own way. I tell young people that now, that even if your job is to pass out papers or to cut out well, they don't cut out clips now, they print them off the internet, but whatever.
I remember that. You used to get the clips every day. Whoa, the big
I made the
folder.
clips. Do I remember it? I can't tell you. My fingers had all the black on them from the newspaper ink, and we had to do all that, cut them and photocopy them and distribute them, and absolutely. But I said, I'm going to do it better than anybody's ever done it. Right. I mean, that was, even if it's the most menial job, because that's how you stand out. And so, I worked really hard with that group. But there's no question that working for somebody like Harvey, and at that point, Neil Golkis was the number 2 man in the department. And so Harvey and Neil Golkis, who worked for the Cleveland Browns.
I was with Neil. I was with the Browns for 15 seasons. I think I was with Neil for 5 of those years.
That's my man right there. Yeah. So, and so a couple things here. One, this shows you how small of a universe this is. And so your reputation precedes you. It truly does. And if you burn one bridge, you've burned 1,000 of them.
It's a wrap.
Because it doesn't matter how pretty your resume is and what kind of paper you put it on and what words you use in your objective. All it takes is one call for someone to say, "Hey, Jameer, I heard that you knew Seth and Neil." And oh yeah, and you're done. And you're done. But getting back to the Pete Rozelle Award, that was a proud moment. I was probably too young to really embrace it, but I was on that team. I'm like the third stringer who got my Super Bowl ring in that deal because, but I'll take it. I still have it and it's still fun to show folks, but it did show me what it took to be recognized in that industry. It showed me what it took for media members to think that you're doing your job the right way. And by the way, sometimes if the media thinks you're doing a great job, that means your own team thinks you're not doing enough. Or if the team thinks you're doing a great job, the media thinks you're not giving them enough access. So it is thankless in that respect sometimes, but that was a wonderful moment. And again, that's Harvey and Neil's award, but I've got one and it's got my name on it and it hangs in my office. And it's something that to be proud of being associated with.
All right, Seth, let's dive in because you make the transition. And I really want to get in to talk about how that all came about working for the Jason Taylor Foundation. Here in the reading room, we have Jason Taylor's draft card that I showed you off camera.
An amazing day.
Amazing day. And you're working with the foundation. Tell us how you made that transition and just unpack some of the great work that you guys are doing in the community.
Yeah. And first of all, I say it's an amazing day. JT will tell you he dreaded that day. He thought he should have been drafted higher, but it all worked out for all of us here. He and I, we clicked immediately actually over basketball. I love pickup basketball, not any good, but I love to play. JT's, a heck of a ball player, as you might imagine. And hey, Seth, where's the good courts around here? And, we kind of connected that way. And what people may not know about probably all sports, but, we're just talking about our great sport of professional football here. What people may not know is that in a PR department, you're going to have the OGs, the vets, the legends in the PR department that really drive the messaging, work with the head coach and ownership and what have you. And then you've got the young guys or young gals that are in the locker room and are closer in age to these players. And, if I'm 23 years old and this guy comes out of college and he's 23 years old, even though he grew up in Pittsburgh, I grew up down here, but we might be listening to some of the same music, generationally, we are connected more than he would be with Harvey at that point in time. And he's going to respect Harvey's advice. But if MTV Cribs calls at that point, or BET 106 and Park, or all the different shows that were big back in 1997, 98, 99, Harvey's not going to be able to find them. He has no idea where I'm like, this is a big deal. You got to be a part of this. JT wants to be more than just an athlete. And how do we get him in these spaces? And so we built a bond very quickly and really became one of my best friends. We were in each other's weddings and just a special friendship. And we talked about how can we work together? I didn't want to be anybody's personal assistant. He wasn't looking for one, but we wanted to find the right thing. And, for me to leave my dream job, all I ever wanted to do from the time I was a little kid was to work for the Miami Dolphins. And I was doing that. And for me to leave my dream job, it had to be for the right thing. And this was the right thing. He had just had his first child, which is also crazy. I think 18 years ago, Isaiah was a year or 2 years old. Now he's a freshman at the University of Arizona playing safety. And God, we're getting old. But he had just had, Isaiah was just born. And he said, I've got a healthy child. I've got the means to provide for him. I have a network of individuals that I can call if I need anything that he has access to. And how many people don't have that for their young people? How many children don't have those advantages? And how do we give back to them? And that's what really got him to start thinking about doing something. We toured a children's hospital down here, the Holtz Children's Hospital in Miami. And he asked me to come down with him. I was still working for the Dolphins. And we decided we were going to do a golf tournament for the Holtz. And I only got 2 weeks of vacation at that point in time. And you know what it is? You work in the NFL, you work for a team, you're working 7 months of the year with maybe 2 days off on the bye weekend. And in the equipment room, you probably don't even get those. And so 7 months of the year without a day off, your 2 weeks you should embrace. But I dedicated my 2 weeks to supporting Jason and to supporting this mission. And we did this golf tournament and it was a huge success. We renovated this learning center at the hospital. And he said, let's do it, man. I want to start a foundation. I want to be more intentional. I've always given back, but I want to be more intentional. Put a business plan together. I knew nothing about the nonprofit world, but we gave it a shot. And 18 years later, if I pulled out of my desk drawer that 3-page business plan, there are still programs that we're doing to this day. We've certainly grown a lot. We've expanded. We've refocused in certain ways. Everybody's had to after COVID, but there are some of those ideals, some of those, and the mission. You talk about this show being the mission of this organization to support young people in need is something that reigns true today.
And speaking of one of those programs that you're doing that was near and dear to the Pro Football Hall of Fame's heart and how you collaborated with the Hall was your slam poetry. Tell us about that. That was amazing because, okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to run my mouth.
No, go for it. I like to hear it.
Because that really was amazing how in this day and time, spoken word and the power of it and how that was used here to kick off enshrinement, the Hall of Fame game, as well as enshrinement. What did that mean to the artists to have that opportunity to display their talents, these young artists, to get that?
Yeah, really incredible. And just so, so folks understand what we're talking about, we had an after-school literacy program, and a young lady named Autumn Williams wrote a poem, first poem she had ever written, but she was inspired to tell her story. And we were blown away. And we realized that all of these things, look, the way that you teach young people today, the way we had to teach them 10 years ago versus the way you and I grew up is different. The faces look different in your classrooms. The world that they're exposed to is different. And so you can't expect to teach in the same way that young people have always been taught. Not that there aren't certain ideals and fundamentals that absolutely have to continue to be a part of education, but you have to evolve and you have to adapt to the population that you're serving. And we saw that we could have individuals, young people, tell their stories, embrace their own narratives, hear for the first time that what they lived and experienced was important. And if they could share those things, you're kind of flipping. Rather than telling them what's important, they're finding importance in their own story. They're finding validation in their own story. And then we say, okay, great. Let's make that story. Now, do you want to make that story better? How do you want it? Not their lived experience better, but their ability to tell it better. So how do you get a greater command of language? How do you think more critically? How do you maybe study history and see where there's parallels to your stories? And now their learning is incentivized intrinsically. Right. And then it's also done artistically. You find some individuals who are disconnected from school. Look, we all know sports is a way that some people stay in school strictly to be a part of sports or other extracurriculars. And This was another way to do that. So we started to see where it could be successful. I went to JT. I said, hey, I want to start a spoken word poetry program. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, I'm not writing any poems. I said, no, you go knock down quarterbacks. We'll have the kids write poems. But I do want to pull in my buddy, Omari Hardwick. And Omari at that time was a young actor, right? Yes. He was a young actor that I have known for, almost 30 years now. He himself was a college football player at the University of Georgia, and the NFL thing didn't play out the way he had wanted it to. And he went out to Hollywood, and he was just starting to get some work. And we started this program. Fast forward now, he gets on Power. Amari's a huge
Ghost.
Star. Yeah, Ghost. He just did a film with Halle Berry and Jennifer Lopez. I mean, he's an absolute rock star.
Yes.
But it's the Omari Hardwick Blue Apple Poetry Network as part of the Jason Taylor Foundation. And it's become the largest spoken word poetry program in the entire state for young people. Wow. And we at one point were in 70 or more schools. We're rebuilding now through COVID. But it has been it's become so much of who we are. And JT quickly embraced it. He was blown away by the stories. I don't know when this is going to air, but tomorrow night we're having the finals of our Louder Than a Bomb Florida competition, the 8th year that we've done this. You think of instead of March Madness, it's a high school poetry competition where we've got 4 teams now that are competing for the title. So, we've put the competition element into it. We have the open mics, we have the storytelling. And then when JT went into the Hall of Fame in 2017, our gift to him was a poem dedicated to his journey. And it was called 20 Years to Travel 20 Miles, because he went to the University of Akron, literally 20 miles away from where you guys are in Canton, Ohio, at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he said it. So he is more of a poet than he realizes. Right. But he said, man, it took me 20 years to travel 20 miles. And I was like, that's a poem. So I got together with a couple of our staff members and Omari. And there's a great video. If you go on YouTube and you search 20 years to travel 20 miles, Omari voices it. It's beautifully done with video. And so that was our first connection to the Hall of Fame in poetry. Yeah. And a few years later, I kind of got this idea that we could do something. I reached out to George Veras, who doesn't understand entertainment better than George. And George
Another legend,
another
legend in the game.
An absolute legend. And George was like, I love it. I think George looks for any opportunity to kind of get back into the entertainment space and tie that into football. It's what he does better than anybody. And he was all over it. He met with these kids and worked with them, and they produced that video and that poem. And I thought it was spectacular.
Yes, it was amazing. It was, man. You said something, and it was a great segue, because I really want to go back there to it. 20 years, 20 miles. When you received the notice as a team that Jason was going to be in the class, he's going to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, first ballot. What did that mean to you guys? And what was that moment back, just going back to that, if you could just relive that, of getting the phone call, what was that like?
It was incredibly special. Not to make this about me, right? Because that's him. That is all him. But as I said, I started with the Dolphins in '96. We drafted Jason in '97. So I was a part of that journey from day one, literally day one. In fact, he was still in LA training, and I woke up. I didn't realize. I thought he was in Akron, and he was in LA. He had left school and was training for the NFL. And we drafted him. And the next day I called him at like 7 a.m, which was 4 a.m. his time. God knows what he had done, the night before, if he was out, after having just been drafted. And I set up, because I was still with the Dolphins, obviously, and I set up an interview for him and kind of woke him up. And it's crazy to think about, that was 1997, and here we are now. But I saw the journey. I saw the tears. There weren't a whole lot of failures, but he had one season where he thought maybe he wasn't going to cut it. And then next thing you know, he's averaging over 10 sacks a season, and that entire arc. And then to build what we built with the Jason Taylor Foundation, it was quite a journey, that to just even be alongside of a legend like that, and to be a part of it, and to play some small role in that journey was really special. And then, quite honestly, my PR background, when Armando Salguero, who's the presenter, he said, hey, I think Jason's got a good shot. Let's talk about what this can look like. To learn the process through Armando, to get to know everybody there at the Hall. I mean, I have always had this great reverence for the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a kid, and a fan of the game and the icons who have played it. But to be that close to it. And then the only thing I was disappointed in is I didn't get to travel to Houston when he went there. And in my heart of heart, I thought he was going to get it. And first ballot, listen, there had not been a first ballot defensive end, since Bruce Smith and Reggie White. So, the odds were stacked against him, but my heart of hearts, I believed, we've got a shot at this, JT, you're going to get it. And he's like, he had set the expectations low, but I was on the phone and got disconnected. And so if you go back and watch the knock, if you go back and watch the video, you hear this phone just ringing. It's a FaceTime ring. And I'm at home because my wife was traveling out of the country. I was watching the kids, and I'm FaceTiming his son, Mason. And his Mason's just trying to turn it off because of the noise. And David Baker's coming in, and it was just, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And I was at home in Florida. So I was really excited for him. So deserving. And then the real fun started. We got to fly into Canton and meet Michelle Norris and meet, and I knew Joe Horgan, but just to meet the whole crew and to tour football heaven was exceptional. Yeah.
Amazing class too. Amazing class. Great men.
Just great men. You're exactly right. Morton Anderson and Kurt Warner and just on and on. Kenny Easley. I mean, just really Terrell Davis.
Class of character.
It really was.
Men of character.
Really was. It's funny how that works out, isn't it?
It is a great class. So you're doing work now, also to co-host alongside OJ McDuffie. What's
Ohio
it like
in the house again, right?
Yeah. What's it like being a co-host of the Fish Tank podcast?
Yeah, we're having so much fun.
Yeah,
I mean, we really are, Jameer. And there was a writer in town that had started this network. I'd heard about podcasting, never got into it, and I had a friend who was just for years trying to get me to listen to podcasts. And I said, I just can't consume anything else. And he was ahead of his time, because clearly this is where a lot of certainly audio entertainment has moved, right? We want to listen to what we want to listen to, when we want to listen to it, on our own terms. And that's the beauty of podcasting. But this guy started telling me what he was doing. And I said, I have all these great stories. I love storytelling, clearly with the poetry. you can't hear me. I won't shut my mouth here in the podcast, but we every time I get together with the guys that we had all these shared experiences with, we remember the old days. We tell stories. I said, how much would somebody love being a fly on the wall and hearing these things that they don't get to hear? Because a lot of what you get to hear, understandably so, is guarded. A lot of what they get to hear is not that it's not truthful, but it's just a piece of the puzzle. And so to hear some of the fun things that happen behind the scenes, to hear the things that happen in the huddle after a play that you've seen 1,000 times and you cheered for, but you didn't realize that that's what was said in the huddle. We thought that there was something, a story that could be told there. And OJ is not only a dear friend, but just a great broadcaster. He was doing radio for a while, and he called me. It just kind of happened it really was happenstance. He reached out to invite me to his wedding, and I said to my wife, "It's OJ." She goes, "Okay, call him back." I go, "No, it's OJ. He's the guy. He's who we need to do this show with." And next thing you know, the fish tank was born. We were doing it on his billiards table in his game room in his house. And we did it for about 1.5 years, 2 years before Jason Jenkins from the Dolphins called me and said, "Hey, I want to talk about the fish tank." I said, "What did I do?" We talk about old guys. We're not. And he goes, "No,
another
no.
legend, my man, JJ.
Oh my God, what a visionary he is. And I'm not just saying that because he signs our paychecks, but he really sees things in an unbelievable way. But he said, "I want to talk about the show. What you guys are doing is good. It's the way fans want to hear content, and I think it should be a part of our platform and not just something you're doing on your own." And now we're hopefully heading into our 3rd season of being a part of the Miami Dolphins Podcast Network. It's ourselves and then Travis Wingfield, who does incredible work with Drive Time. But we say tell the greatest stories never told, the greatest Miami Dolphins tales, right? A little pun, never told. But the guest list has been, JT's been on, Ricky Williams, Zach Thomas. Not quite as legendary as your guest list.
No. We've had Zach Thomas on. No.
I know it. I went and see it. I'm going to send this and say, Zach, who did it better? But but to get those guys on and to have them talk about things that were so meaningful to them that maybe they hadn't shared publicly. And now it's starting to transition to current players. We just had Tua Tagovailoa on, which was a game changer for our show. When you get QB1 from the current team and a guy who, is talked about as much as he is, I wake up and I'm getting texts and the show was talked about on ESPN so now this is a little bit of an insider trading thing, but JT's sister is Joy Taylor, who's on the herd with Colin Cowherd. And she says, "Hey, I used your clip on the show today." It's mind blowing, but it's been so much fun. It has been a little bit of a stretch to step on the other side.
Right.
But we're having a blast and we've turned it into something that people care about. We did an interview yesterday with guys in England that are huge Dolphin fans and apparently huge fish tank fans. And it's just not something I ever thought that I'd be doing, but boy, am I glad that we're doing it.
You're absolutely right, Seth, because it is a delicate line for guys like us that have worked in the PR communications world of a team. And I don't know, I still carry the mindset. And even, there's so many things you hear. There's so many things that you see and have experienced. And it's like, OJ can say it, but I'm not going to say it.
Right.
I can bring it up and, "Hey, OJ, remember when?" And then let him say, because it's just still that fine line. Even with me today, I'm not with the Jets. I'm not with the Browns, but I'm with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Yeah. And there's still it's still a locker room, and it's still, your team that you have to protect. So I hear you. It's a fine line, but it's so amazing. May 2020. Unfortunately, not only did the NFL community, Fins Nation lost a living legend and head coach Don Shula. You can give a better perspective than anyone because working for the organization, growing up in and around South Florida, what was that day like? And just what did overall the rejoicing of his life, what did that mean for Dolphins family?
Another Ohio guy, right? First and foremost, got to throw that out there. But and I did not have the pleasure of working under Coach Shula. I started in '96, which was Jimmy Johnson's first year. So I still got to work under a Hall of Fame coach, which was an unbelievable life lessons that we learned there and just an experience. But boy, did I grow up idolizing Coach Shula in so many ways. He was like all of our second fathers. And even if I had never met the man, but he was the epitome of class. He was the epitome of success. He was the epitome of doing things the right way and still getting them done. And, and he was tough. And he was just, no matter what was happening with the Dolphins, you just felt proud that Don Shula was your head coach. And then in this seat now with the fish tank, when we get to talk to guys and hear about how much how meaningful Coach Shula was in their lives, not just on the field, but off, icon. I don't know if it even does him justice, you know, and you're talking, nobody led a football team to more wins than this individual. The Super Bowl championships. Oh, by the way, perfection. People don't want to hear about it, but I don't care. The 72 Dolphins, nobody's done it since, undefeated, untied. And so he is just a giant amongst giants in the South Florida community, but I think beyond the South Florida community. So listen, Coach was you saw over the years because he consistently was back in Miami. He would come to games, got to the point where he wasn't walking. He was in a cart, got to the point where you can see somebody aging right before your eyes. And so, that all of us are on borrowed time.
That's right.
And it just gave everyone an opportunity to really appreciate the man that he was and what he meant to their lives, and what he meant to making the Miami Dolphins a household name across the world and not just across South Florida. And so I think that everybody cherished those opportunities to spend some time with Coach in his final days. And when he did pass, it was sad, but it was also this great time to reflect. It was a great time for the organization and all of those who some way, shape, or form were touched by, his brilliance to come together and remember the man. And he'll never be forgotten. I mean, the Dolphins and Coach Shula will be synonymous for eternity.
I remember as a young kid working in the equipment room for the New York Jets. And the first time I saw Don Shula, it was like, oh man, that's the Don. And he saw me mouth it and he was like, how you doing, son? How you
That's
doing?
A pretty good Shula you got right there.
He was just like, how you doing there, son? I was like, oh wow. Cause he saw me, I was like, the Don. And I was like, wow, I was blown away.
That's awesome.
Before I let you go, Seth, let's talk about vision, mission that you have, not only for yourself, but for the podcast, for JTF, for all the work that you guys are doing for 2022 into the 2023 season, man.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because the past 2 years in the nonprofit world, I think for so many companies, but certainly in the nonprofit world during this pandemic, it was just hold on, keep the lights on, try and keep as much of your staff employed, try and hold on to as much of your programming as you can, right? And then this year has been this transitioning back. Hey, we're going to do our first in-person event again, and maybe it won't live up to what our standards are, but we're going to get there.
Right.
But we're going to roll into this next year and, I'll be darned if we're not going for it and trying to be the best that we can be, better than we were before. And so I'm excited for that. We're introducing a new program with the Jason Taylor Foundation, and it's called Jason Taylor's Careers in Sports Network. Okay. And we're going to have to talk about it as somebody who came up through this game yourself. So many of our young people only think the way that you can work in sports is if you carry a ball, if you can, throw the ball fast, whatever it might be. And look at you, look at me, look at the careers of all the people that are around us where we've built lifetime careers in sports. And so we want to teach our young people that those opportunities exist. I want them to be more prepared when they get to college than I was when I got to the University of Florida. I want the workforce to look more diverse and be more reflective of the community that we serve. And so we're really excited about this program. We just brought in Troy Drayton, who, if you remember Troy, he was a tight end in the league for a long time. He's one of JT's big brothers in the league. And Troy did great work with the Dolphins for a while in their youth programs, and he's going to direct the program. And so that's kind of, I think, the next iteration of some impactful programming that we're going to do here with the foundation. And we're very excited about that. For the fish tank, we want to just keep telling great stories, want to keep folks entertained and not just want to, and OJ was talking about this yesterday. When you get Ricky Williams on, when the boss comes back in, hopefully when Dan Marino, right? You talk about anybody who's iconic with the Miami Dolphins, when Dan Marino comes on the show, those are spectacular. Tua Tagovailoa, you get the big names. It's great to have them. Those are sexy stories. They're exciting. but some of the guys that are not household names are some of the best storytellers.
Huge
and their
stories.
experiences. It's unbelievable. You know,
Yes.
the guy who didn't get drafted, who had to, Jay Fiedler, who followed Dan Marino as a quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. The amount of times that he got cut, the amount of times he was told he'll never play in the National Football League, having to leave and go coach, you know, the game for a year at the college level before he got called back up for an opportunity. I mean, those stories are incredible. And so we look forward to telling more of those stories. And I think we're going to do some deep dives into some iconic moments in Dolphins history as well. And just trying to have some fun with it. And I'll just use this opportunity. I mentioned Ralph Stringer at the beginning of the show, who was born in Warren, Ohio, which is just 30 miles away from Canton, from what I understand.
Yes, sir.
And this is a guy that was destined for greatness. He was on the Playboy All-American team with guys like Ozzie Newsome, who I think you can go find his bust if you walk out of your office.
It's here.
Earl Campbell, I think he's over there as well.
Yep.
And then tragedy struck and he had to rebuild his life. And yet he's at the Hall of Fame all the time. He's the first guy George will call when, you know, Dan Marino's needed. And he's got an incredible story to tell that we're going to tell in podcast form and doing a scripted podcast. And so we've got a lot of projects, a lot of irons in the fire, and just having fun with it all.
One of those stories, and I got to take a step back before I let you go, a little Jet Dolphins AFC East banter. Do you tell the story of I know it was a night game. I think it was either Sunday night. No, it wasn't Monday night. It was Sunday night. No, it was a Monday night game when Dan did the fake spike and went over the top on Aaron Glenn.
Yeah. Yeah. The clock play. So as you bring it up, and I certainly have no problems talking about it, you stepped into it. So, you know, we'll go there.
I cried.
I mean, one of Dan's most iconic moments, right? We did during COVID, 2 years ago, where there was no preseason, we did this thing, these classic games. And so OJ and I, we watched the games with some of the legends of some of these classic games. And so we got to watch that game with Dan and talk about what that moment was and what was he saying as he was, you know, running up there and trying to tell everybody clock it and all of those great things. And so that was magical for me to sit there and have that conversation with Dan Marino. But we also just had, in Ohio again, Bernie Kosar was in the first game. So Bernie is the one, and Bernie is, as actually, for those who don't know this, Bernie is the one who brought the clock play to Miami. Bernie created the clock play 7 or 8 years before Dan Marino made it famous. Wow. And, you know, Bernie was the guy who, you know, he's a football savant. He would draw up plays in the dirt. And the clock play was one of these things that he tried to do the math of, you know, do you run a play and run it out of bounds? You know, can I get a yard or two and make up for how much time I lost if I tried to clock it? And, you know, I want to get the best effort. And so he envisioned this. But he talks about, you know, he didn't have that release that Dan Marino had. He didn't have, you know, and Danny's ability to sell it. But Bernie got on and talked about how the clock play was created 7 or 8 years later. He ran it in a game and it didn't work. He ran it in a game and it did work, but he didn't get a touchdown. And every team and every coach he went to, every practice, he would talk about it. Let's run the clock play. Let's run the clock play. People got sick of hearing about it, but the Dolphins listened, and Don Shula and Dan Marino listened. And in the moment of truth, when they needed it, man, if it didn't work. And so go back and watch the video. And who's the first guy that Dan runs up to and celebrates with? It's Bernie Kosar.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm on it. I'm going to watch that.
Very cool moment.
Seth, thank you so much for your time, man. Anything that we can do here at the Hall of Fame, please reach out. Much continued success to you this season. And thank you so much for your time and joining us here on the mission.
Thank you for having me. I'm humbled.